Everybody knows the Mullah regime is not to be trusted. Nobody trusts them for good reason. They're not trustworthy. Even if they agree to certain stuff when it comes to, oh, well, we will, like only enrich to, nobody cares. Nobody believes them. Nobody. Not Donald, not nobody. One of the things we're working on, remember, I keep trying to outline the competitive adaptation. This is going to go back to the talks. It's pretty clear that Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state and the Chinese Communist Party are giving material support to the Mullah regime, not the least of which is things regarding their ballistic missiles. One of the things I wanted to mention the other day before I had to bounce is it's pretty clear one of the things that helped flesh out tragically brave Iranian protesters' use of Starlink is something called the Kalinka. So the Kalinka is a system that Putin designed and developed in response to Ukrainian defense forces leveraging Starlink. What it is, it fits on a truck. I'm just using this as an example of the material support. And it gives you about a 15-mile radius, and that's what the Mullah regime was driving around trying to flesh out who was using Starlink, and that's why they were able to know who to kick, whose door to kick in, and whose family to shoot. So that also applies to things like ballistic missiles, right? So we're putting in more and more missile defense in the region, almost assuredly in part because of the material support that the Mullah regime is getting by their patriot states. And that means that we're, again, like in a race between who can position what quickly enough so we can act decisively. That's one of the things underlining the talks. As far as like things that came out, I would contend the response is very clear. President Trump does not trust the mullahs. And as soon as the talks were done, he immediately hit him with more sanctions and said, yeah, if nothing good comes out of these talks, we're going to hammer you. Essentially, is what he said. So, I mean, that's kind of like where I see things resting. If you're wondering why certain things are violently struck right now, because the battlefield is not static. You very much have touched on that. You and Tulsi and Goldie, you've started to reiterate that point, which is very helpful for the people both in support of Iranian protesters as well as the Iranian protesters inside Iran, so they can best gauge how they're supposed to act incorporating that fluid environment. Does that help a little?
Yep, that was really good. Thank you so much for that. By the way, guys, just because I am talking about Iran, that doesn't mean that you need to focus on Iran. You could talk about Islam stuff that is happening in the USA. I mean, the Epstein files if you wanted to, or but things that are really main topics right now regarding politics. You want to talk about that? You could talk about that. I just want to before we go through Daniel and Sammy were the first people that raised their hands so far. I just quickly want to give you as everyone a summary regarding the Iran situation before we go through to the people who raised their hand, just in case some people are not on the same page regarding what the latest updates were. So, as many of you know, the first round of the indirect negotiations between US and the Islamic Republic took place in Oman. It was moved from Turkey after the Islamic Republic insisted that they have to have it in Oman because well, I'm not going to go over the details why they wanted to move it. So the negotiations failed to resolve any of the four main disputes. Basically, the four are stopping the nuclear program, halting the ballistic missile program, ending support for proxy groups, handing over enriched uranium, and stopping human rights violations. The Abbas Araghchi, which is the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, stated that they will never negotiate on missiles. They refuse to stop enrichment or ship uranium out of the country, which shows that the negotiations are not going anywhere. And Araghchi even threatened that if war breaks out, U.S. bases in the region will be targeted. Yeah, sure. And then the U.S. accepted that meeting to they accepted the meeting to prove the regional. Oh, so yeah, basically, a lot of people are saying why the United States is talking. A lot of people are saying the United States need to show the regional allies that diplomacy, they are trying diplomacy first before they attack. So one key point was the CENTCOM commander was part of the negotiations, which is unusual. I think his name was Admiral Cooper. He joined the U.S. delegation wearing his military uniform to send a threatening message, apparently. Trump's reaction, Trump stated talks were good and will continue next week, but emphasized that the Islamic Republic must not have nuclear weapons. One thing that I saw, there was a contradiction between Rubio and Trump. which might be mind games to confuse the Islamic Republic. I don't know. But Rubio said that everything should be on the table, all the four that I mentioned. Trump on the plane mentioned that it's okay to only focus on nuclear, which is something interesting that there was a contradiction between. So I have other points that at some point I could bring about regarding some updates regarding what's happening in Iran, but some internal news from inside Iran. But let's go to the people who just raised their hand before. So BT, if you want to take charge.
In addition to the list, I received a message earlier today from Mr. Gary. He will not be able to join us for the next 72 hours, but he wanted me to share something.
Yes, of course. I always want you to add yourself to the list.
Well, I
I
mean,
need,
should I cut everybody or just go on the list?
I would love I would love to. Like,
yeah.
please.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You're number one on the list, so I'm cutting you. Thank you. Okay. He says within the last 6 hours, he has been asked to opine on the inevitability or non inevitability of US CENTCOM actions within Iran. He made a little summary and would like me to share that if I'd like. US CENTCOM actions in Iran cannot be averted. The desert heat in Iran becomes problematic in about 125 days, and that is outside the limit for ongoing US Anaconda Plan of squeezing Iran economically and strategically. In the interim, as the United States, Israel, and Iranians living in the diaspora provide Iranian internal resistance groups more Starlink and sat phone capabilities. This can facilitate more and more coordination, civilian defense, and governmental planning between Iranians. Current actions unfolding from individuals and groups with ties within the northwestern, western, and southern Iranian provinces will continue to unfold with more governmental buildings, IRGC Basij Iran Army installation explosions. As US CENTCOM/DIA monitors this increasing internal disruption and between provinces cooperation as direct evidence for signs of strengthening or stalling of Iranian people's resistance, then the rational and precise US CENTCOM missile strikes and a typo, not sure what that word is supposed to be, can be optimally applied. Then the primary mission of placing US CENTCOM UN IAEA personnel at every Iranian nuclear R&D site can unfold. Because Iranian expertise in nuclear facility maintenance and decommissioning is deep, their abilities to conduct the 2+ years work of decommissioning can proceed orderly with UN IAEA assistance and US CENTCOM site security in place. The looting and insecurity around Al Tuatha will not be repeated since that misstep led to the 10+ years cleanup of the radioactive waste trails in Iraqi Shiistan. The Iranian regime's amassed fissile materials are a matter of life and death for hundreds of millions of people living in the Middle East and Central Asia. That Iran's fissile material is dispersed across and within Iran's numerous nuclear facilities is discomforting profoundly. This planning for using sorties and missiles to create no-go zones around every single nuclear facility is arduous because of the need for US CENTCOM personnel and defensive perimeters to be established immediately thereafter. This will require decommissioning bases throughout the central Iranian plateau, with some in the periphery of Iran. I would ask the group to understand the uncertainty around the timing of events over the next 125 days, and to please offer prayers for wisdom for the leaders of US CENTCOM, as well as for the men and women preparing to accomplish these complex missions within the coming 125-day window. Gary.
Hi, good evening, friends. And I got two questions. First one kind of short. Is there any institution or something in the US or somewhere in the West that are like learning how the Mullah regime works, like technology, but for the Islamic Republic? The sinology, criminology, all that stuff. Is there anything like
I
this?
mean, there's a lot of academic fields like within academic circles. They study Shia Islam and politics, around Shia Islam in modern history. There's a lot of people that are their expertise is that. So yeah, I mean, it's not an institution. I don't know of any institutions that do that, but I'm talking from an academic perspective. There are people that focus a lot of their attention on that, and they write papers on it and analyze everything that comes out of their mouths.
So, because I asked it because, like, maybe if there is something like this, like academic circles and stuff, so they're kind of interested in the Islamic Republic to continue so they can get their bread on a table in the end of the day.
Nothing that is that influential. The people who are interested in the Islamic Republic surviving because they're making money off of it is the fake opposition mostly.
The second one is like, I hope I will get it, like, I hope I will express it right.
One,
Arab communities tend to like be around the family. So the most important thing for them is the family interest and the family dignity. So in Israel, it could be like if I don't know, some Arab girl goes out with a non-Arab guy or even non the right tribe guy, she can be killed for family dignity, like her own
honor.
family.
This is not because they're family centric. This is because this is an honor culture. Being family centric does this is anti-family. Killing your daughter doesn't make you family centric. It makes you
Yeah, but they
anti-family.
also tend to live like in houses with 4 or 5 stories, and basically each story is for like a son or a daughter that are connected to this family. So every sub
So
family, if I can.
what's the main point that you're making?
Is there anything alike in the Persians families?
No, like the honor culture.
Could you give more information on how Middle Persian family like is work the dynamics of
It's like the
of a
it's like the nuclear family, just like the rest of the world.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah. No, thank you.
Okay, next we have Sammy.
Wanted to ask, what do you think would happen to the Epstein clientele next? Would there be any actions that would be carried on, or it would fade away in some months?
I think we're going to be dealing with the Epstein stuff for years. I don't know. Does anybody like? I just saw the Clintons are supposed to go testify in Congress over this, right? So that is going to be content gold mine for all the content creators all around the world. I mean, Bill Gates is involved, Elon Musk is involved, Trump is involved, Clinton's like their names are included. Like, I think people are fascinated when it comes to rich people being involved in drama and stuff. Like, this is such a hot topic. I don't see it going anywhere. I mean, even the Pizzagate stuff is back. So even if it goes away for a while, it will just come back at some point.
And do you think Trump's alibi that he broke his friendship with Epstein in 2003 in Mar-a-Lago or something, I don't remember, he stopped, do you think his alibi stands corrected?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Trump seems to actually be in a better position compared to somebody like Elon Musk, because I mean, I don't know if that I'm correct or not, but it seemed like Trump had no connection to Epstein after his charges. So Trump actually, the files are making Trump look kind of okay, because everything bad against Trump was just basically people who were just making accusations without actually putting any evidence there. So I think Elon Musk looks bad based on the files because he was basically contacting Epstein to be allowed in the. It doesn't show that. Like, I'm not saying that there's any evidence that Elon Musk had sex with children or anything like that, but it is weird that after it was public that he was charged for child sex trafficking, you emailed the guy and begging him to be allowed into the island for her wildest parties. That doesn't look good. But Trump, I honestly think Trump looks kind of like better compared to everyone else because he had no connection to the guy after he was charged. The worst person that the person that looks the worst seems to be Clinton and Bill Gates right now.
Yeah, but there's this chance of just guilt by association, right? Like
Yeah.
they said that Stephen Hawking was involved, and him being such a legendary scientist and paralytic above all, I cannot imagine how would he be involved in such things, right? So,
No, he's not
I
involved.
continue, sir.
No, like it's just like I mean, like somebody's name could be in the files because he was like fixing the plumbing at the Epstein Island. So like his name is there because Epstein emailed him to come fix the plumbing. So like, of course, there's going to be a lot of names there, but some people are just gonna, yeah. I mean, just because your name is in the files, that doesn't make you guilty.
Uh,
Yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you.
yeah. Like in the whole world, by the way, is talking about it. This is not an American obsession. This is a world obsession right now. The Epstein file has turned into a world obsession. Even in like Bangladesh, people are talking about this. Like even Indonesia, everyone is talking about it. And it's on TikTok everywhere, and young people are talking about it. And for some reason, I was told that the boomers are going to be falling for the fake AI videos, but the Gen Z is now sharing AI videos of Trump with children, not knowing it's AI. There's a lot of kids believing AI pictures of Trump with children, and it's being shared on TikTok as if like, oh my God, look, Trump was with children. So
People are
yeah,
very
so
quick to believe things that fit the version of reality they want to believe is true.
yeah. But also, this is quite worrying that AI has gotten to the point where Gen Z is believing fake AI pictures, not just boomers. Oh, Jeffrey, want to add to that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that was looked at regarding the like as an operational concern regarding AI because it makes disinformation very, very easy. Like the entrance barrier you need to meet to make really kind of, or at least increasingly believable pieces of disinformation is increasingly lowered. You can make all kinds of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not to the point where it's like you can't differentiate it at all right now. It's getting there. I mean, it's getting there. And if you have someone who's emotionally compromised or, bought into something, they're not going to do I mean, to Samantha's point, they're not going to do any kind of critical assessment where they see they're just going to see it as reinforcing what they want to believe. That's exactly why our adversaries do things like that. That's leveraging co radicalization to politically paralyze their opposition, whether it's the United States or Western Alliance or.
So
You're right to be
so
concerned.
so my prediction is, has been for a while, that pretty soon we will have AI. AI will be the solution to all of this fake AI pictures and videos. I thought at some point we're going to have AI easily detecting what's real and what's AI. It should be very easy for AI to determine whether a video or a picture is real or AI. And then at some point, everybody's just going to have pre installed on their phone, like any picture or video that they're going to see, everybody's going to be able to install an app on their phone, which is an AI detector. And every picture or video that passes their screen, it will just tell you if this is AI or not. This is what I assume that would happen at some point. Jeffrey, go on.
Yeah, agentic AI or dispersed agentic AI, absolutely. I mean, that's the only thing that could really do that. So one of the kind of war games that was done by the DoD, maybe in the past 2 or 3 years, is quite telling. And this also applies to the soft power battle space or the battle of the narratives. So they had two forces, absolutely the same equipment, same level of training, same everything, except one force had artificial intelligence acting in the military version of the decision support role, and the other one didn't. And in every instance, the one that had AI acting in the military version of the decision support role obliterated, and I mean absolutely obliterated, the other force, even though everything else was the same. It'll also play out with regards to the soft power battle space. I mean, you and Goldie do a good job at catching some of the ham-fisted shit that the Mullah regime tried to do. Remember when you were like, "Look at that! It's a horrible." I forgot. It was like a couple of days ago. I spat out my coffee laughing because you were right to call it out. That said, it doesn't mean what it does show is that the adversaries also have figured out, even though they're not as good at it, the impact of leveraging that technology, right?
Al Ace is in the chat saying Grok said in the pic of Epstein in Tel Aviv was real, but it was definitely fake. Yeah, I'm not saying we have that yet, but at some point we're gonna have AI easily being able to detect. Right now we don't have that yet, but we will have that at some point.
Uh,
Yeah,
I have a continuation on that. Like Epstein, there was this whole media lobby that wanted to stick the name Epstein to just, Israeli intelligence Mossad. And by the way things are going on, it seems to me that was not just sharing information with Mossad. It was, I feel like he was like a broker, information broker for every intelligence agency. Because I saw some sources where there was links with Russia, and then there were obvious links with CIA. What are your views on that?
yeah. I mean, of course, it's Mossad. Why not, right? There's children involved, and it's a perfect conspiracy theory against Jews when children's as victims being. I mean, it's 2,000 years old. Like Jews doing weird things to children. Why not? Like this perfectly matches all the anti-Semitic stereotypes for you to use as much as you can against to support all of the BS conspiracy theories that these people have. I honestly think that it's actually more. If I had to bet, and again, I have no evidence for this, but if I had to bet, I would say like the Russians are more likely to be involved here. Of course, like this was expected. Like even if we would have been shocked if they didn't blame this on Mossad or Israel. That would like, what the hell? Like, how did they not do this? Like, of course they would do this. Wouldn't this be a shock if they didn't blame the Mossad? I would be shocked.
No, it's not. It's not about the shock. It's what was Epstein really right, and him having links to specifically the allies of America and even Britain and intelligence agencies all over the world. It
Yeah.
feels like it was some sort of
He
control or
was
something.
a man connected to politicians, of course, dealing with some intelligence. I'm connected to security experts and intelligence experts. I hear Jeffrey is here, right? I'm connected to him. It's not that hard to be connected to people. The guy is a billionaire and is trying to increase his network all around the world. So, of course, there's going to be some connections to him and almost every single intelligence agency on the planet. Hila, you want to add to that?
I'm dying to say something about Epstein. Okay, he's a money guy, right? And
Yeah.
he has a lot of money. He's very bored, perverted as fuck. He has much time. He's like sending emails to everybody, MIT professors about molecular biology, former princes and royalty, and former prime minister. And some people answer, some people don't. I mean, and some people is like, oh, I can push him here, I can push him there, I can maybe squeeze this, I can squeeze that. But I mean, it feels like he's doing lottery tickets, right? He's just sending emails to people. And then if you see someone sending him an email and asking him for stuff, that's bizarre. That's very bizarre. I saw Nomi Campbell is writing him emails. Call Nomi, call Nomi, call Nomi. That's bizarre. That's suspicious as fuck. But
Also,
I
can
mean,
I add something on it? If you will look at all the Mossad operations, like since Israel didn't even existed, every operation is towards an enemy that has blood on hands. Like Mossad didn't, I don't know, paid for some bizarre guy 20 years before something to just in one day come and like, I don't know, have some intelligence or some bullshit on some politician that wasn't even meant to be a politician 20 years back, right? The most bizarre thing that Mossad have done is actually stealing blue marks of a French plane after French backstabbed Israel in the when Israel paid for France for jets, for fighter jets, and France made a political mistake and didn't want to give the planes already when the money was sent to France, and that was hell of an operation. But other than this, Mossad worked only on actual enemies who had Jew blood on hands. And now look at the FSB, KGB, and whatever be from Russia that was funding every possible terror organization. People in the United of Soviet Union were hungry, were standing in lines to get bread, while some crazy ass Fidel Castro was getting money and weaponry to make some bullshit revolution and take a whole country into like a third world country state. So that's it on the Mossad.
Jeffrey wanted to add something to this.
So there's a lot of it. I can say with a reasonable degree of confidence, there's a reasonable probability that Jeffrey Epstein actually had organizational, maybe even operational ties to the intelligence agencies of Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state. I posted it in the chat. Sergei Belyakov, who was a former Russian deputy minister, and he was a graduate of the FSB. Epstein actually was cultivating, business and social ties with him. Maria Drakova. I mean, if I'm mispronouncing this, Daniel, do help me. I'm Italian. I don't speak Slavic.
You
It's
actually
okay.
pronounce it good. You actually pronounce it good. But if you change the K, if you change the K with the ch, it means that he was a wonker.
So, I mean, she was a venture capitalist and former pro-Kremlin youth activist. I think, if I remember correctly, that's the Nazi movement that was created by Alexander Dugin. It's kind of like Putin's version of the Hitler Youth. A lot of the intelligence agencies have looked at Epstein's island being used as a honey trap for Russian intelligence to get compromising stuff on Western leaders and then use that as influence. So, I mean, it doesn't. Why am I going through all of that? I'll tell you why and how this actually plays into what's going on with Iran, right? Taking down the mullahs. As you know, there's organizational operational ties amongst the autocratic bloc. Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Chinese Communist Party, Mullah regime, North Korean regime. Part and parcel of that autocratic bloc's general strategy is hybrid or unrestricted warfare, which looks at things like destabilization efforts, right? Amplification. Well, given the increasing geopolitical and geostrategic tension, I wouldn't put it past those adversaries to use the 3 million pages that was just dropped by the by the DOJ and the Epstein files to foment further unrest and or fracturing within the United States-led Western Bloc to politically paralyze us to put forward policies to counter what they're doing in their respective regions, whether it's Europe or in the case of the Mullah regime belligerency in the Middle East, the Mullah regime in the Middle East or Taiwan. That's an actual thing. Andrew Busta, I always mispronounce his last name, Bustamante. He's kind of like a retired CIA case officer. He actually did a podcast about this just recently, about why that was, dropped and how adversaries could use it.
I see. By the way, guys, if you also want to talk more about the specifics of the Islamic ideology of the Islamic Republic, because I know a lot of people here already have a general understanding of some of the beliefs of Muslims, but it gets a lot more complicated if you get very specific with different sects and different groups, and then how those beliefs translates into political views and then political actions. I think that's a whole area that I can really help with, that I don't see in the English media, there's not that much English content about this. Like, I don't think even in academic circles, and I do, if you do ask me about them, then this is getting recorded and then it shows up on our channel, and then it will be documented and available for other people to have a better understanding of what's going on in the minds of the mullahs.
I've been curious as to how legitimate the 1979 referendum was in Iran, because Grok says no on that one and says it was like 98% or 96% for Khamenei to be put in power.
So you mean Khomeini, right? The
Yeah,
1979.
Khamenei, yes.
Yeah. So before I answer you, what do you think about any poll results showing 98% in favor of something? Like, what do you what do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, it's like a little high, I would say.
Right.
You don't get
Yeah.
98% success on many things at all. So
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's 98% already should be a major red flag regarding whether or not Daniel, stop that, it's distracting me. Yeah, that should already give you like a indication regarding how trustworthy that is. But I can tell you that even within the people I know, like from our previous generation, they told us that they voted multiple times. They told us, for example, that they will ask you what you're voting for. So guys, for people who don't know what Kurt is talking about, after the Islamic Republic, the Islamic Republic held a referendum for people to vote whether they want the Islamic Republic or not, right? And the options were not Islamic Republic and other options. The option was just yes or no to the Islamic Republic, right? And according to them, they got 98% of Iranian people voting yes. And nobody believes that number. I'm surprised that Grok is actually mentioning that number. It's insane. Like, I think that the fact that Grok is like, it's strange that they're reporting that number as factual. Like, even within my own family, I know people who said that they voted multiple times yes, because you would say, for example, that if you're voting for yes, they will allow you, and they wouldn't even check whether you voted or not. They wouldn't check your ID or anything. It's just like, I'm voting yes. But more damning than that, we have some people that were working with the government at that time that reported the original number that the Islamic Republic was going to put out there was higher than the voting age population of Iran at that time. And he stopped them from reporting that. They're like, "This is what the f are you doing? There are not that many people within the voting age." So eventually they corrected it and reported it a different number. But that's the number that they were going with. The number of people who voted yes was the original number they're going to report was higher than the people available in Iran to vote.
So, like, AI as it exists right now is very good, and in many ways, it's a lot better. It's a lot better than people. That said, the way in which it does its consensus building is it scans the internet and all these other sources and kind of comes up and says, okay, what's all the different research papers and everything say? The problem with that is that a lot of that, ever since our university's been hijacked by radical leftists since the mid late 60s, comes off as being biased, and that can sit there and undermine the accuracy of what the AI says. Never mind all the different guide rails. I've been fighting back and forth with things like ChatGPT, which I very much love. That said, as the guide rails are getting more, they needed guide rails. That said, they got screwed up because it's like biased with a combination of these like C-suite douchebags that don't like want to insulate from any lawsuit, mixed with like left-wing bias, because that's where you get most of your tech people from, is universities. And that kind of like, you always have to fight and have this friction with AI. Grok was a lot less constrained in that bias. That said, it also, what it gains in usability, it loses some in regards to accuracy. So, they're still fleshing that out, like where that exists.
Actually, it's interesting to me when people say like, "Oh, AI is bad at this. It's been 2 years. Like, I'm still impressed. I still can't believe we are. But the fact that people are like, you're bad at this. We didn't have this at all 2 years ago. Like, our expectations just rise so fast. But anyways, so let's go. Oh, by the way, Nicholas, you're on the list.
So next we have Danny.
Hi, so I'm kind of confused about what the Saudis want with respect to Iran, so let me know if I'm wrong about something here. I read somewhere that Iran International is partly financed by and associated with the Saudis, and you mentioned recently that the Saudis were the main source of financing for the MEK. Aren't those two groups with very opposing views for Iran? And are they just trying to cause trouble for the Islamic Republic and supporting all their opposition?
All right. So here's the thing that is here are the something that we all have to understand when it comes to soft power, right? Is that the best way to use soft power is to invest in it first before you even know what you're going to use it for, because it will end up being useful even if you don't know how and when. It's just leverage, right? So I mean, the smartest way for you to invest in soft power within a country is for you not to actually show your agenda and bias for a very, 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 very long time. Just make sure that you are there. You have a media with a good, but decent amount of audience, so that you could eventually, you might even not know what you're going to be using it for. Just make sure that you have a presence, so that someday, if you need it, you could basically use it as a leverage to have some influence. That's how you use soft power, right? And Iran International is that when it comes to Saudi Arabia, is just like, just make sure it's there. So when we need it, we have it. But the problem is that the Saudis weren't actually very smart with Iran International, because they, from the very beginning, some of their biases were showing, including, this might be interesting to you, Danny, advertising the MEK, right? Years ago, would just constantly bring the MEK people as experts to market them and advertise them. And they even broadcasted one of the one of the biggest ceremonies of the MEK, like just covering it all the time without criticizing it, just supporting it, advertising it. It was insane. Iranian people used to hate Iran International because they would advertise the MEK, Kurdish separatist groups, communists, every single person that we hate. Even today, they constantly are trying to introduce alternative leaders to Princess of Pahlavi by giving them a platform, even though their opinion is not needed or they're not relevant, right? They keep bringing them on as a way to kind of promote them. The only reason, so, but the thing is that Iran International cannot be trusted, but should also be used, because they have a lot of influence, they have a big audience. We have no other alternative to Iran International that has this reach. And at the end of the day, they're doing more good than harm, because every time they try to do this bullshit, the Iranian people are quick to recognize it and call it off, right? So the Iranian people are very aware, and they're so politically savvy that any types of this bullshit that is being pulled by Iran International, they're like, yep, we see what you're doing, fuck off, right? And also, another reason why we still need to use Iran International, because of the wide reach that they have, is because Iran International's main priority is to be the source of news. And you cannot keep saying things that the Iranian people don't want to hear and expect people to keep watching your news, right? So because for them to, for this to work, they need to appeal to what the Iranian people want. They have to also do a lot of reporting that we want. And they also at least have to make sure that they're a credible source of news, or else they will completely be dismissed. They have to cover Pahlavi, they have to cover the protests accurately, they have to show that Iranian people really want Pahlavi, because it's so obvious that if they don't do that, nobody would take them seriously. That's why we have to be skeptical, we have to be mindful, but we also have to use them. And Prince Rosapanovi uses them as a way to advertise the QR code for people who are what is it called? recession. What is it called when people leave the regime? Defections. When
Effect.
there's defections from the regime, he had the QR code for people to join his side, and basically the platform that he created, he used Iran International to advertise that, right? And honestly, we don't have anything better. So a lot of people think Manitou is better. Manitou is more pro Pahlavi. However, Manitou doesn't have as wide of a reach as Iran International, and they do sometimes do things that Iranian people don't like as well. So, for example, Manitou recently came out and said like we should stop having the American and Israeli flags in our protest because United States and Israel didn't come to our help. And Iranian people are like, doesn't that contradict the command of a princess? Like Princess of Pahlavi is telling us to continue, appealing to the Americans and Israelis to come help us, and now you're telling us not to bring American and Israeli flags. That's a contradiction to what Princess of Pahlavi wants. And another thing that Manitou done recently that a lot of people like this happened just yesterday, by the way. This is new news, right? So Manitou just came up with a brilliant, sarcastically, I'm saying, idea for Iranians inside Iran who support this revolution to carry black ribbons with them as a way to mourn the fallen, which is basically a way to mark themselves to the regime on who's with the revolution. So a lot of people and they're not backing off apparently. A lot of people are basically calling them out. They're like, "Are you fucking retarded? Like you want
They're
Iranians
promoting
to
this
mark
inside
themselves?
Iran.
What? What?
They're promoting this inside Iran.
Yes, they're saying Iranians inside Iran come out with black ribbons to support this revolution. Like basically, just tell on yourselves to the regime. And also, a lot of people don't like that because they want this black ribbons as a way to mourn all the people who have died. And a lot of Iranians are saying like, this is not the time of mourning. We're more angry than we are sad, and this doesn't match the messaging that is coming from the revolution, that this is not the time for mourning. So a lot of people are like basically calling out Manitou. And by the way, another media before we go to Jeffrey, because Jeffrey, you wanted to add on this, right? Yeah. So another thing before I go to Jeffrey, another media is so the two other media that people mistrust more than anyone is BBC Persian, which Iranians hate with passion. They call it Ayatollah BBC, and another one is Voice of America, Sadaya America, because they, for some reason, I don't know why Trump hasn't stopped Voice of America, because it's basically all the worst people, all the is run by leftists and reformers and anti-Pahlavi people. And they just recently had a new guy called Mahdi, which is a Kurdish separatist, and he hates Pahlavi with passion. And he basically has made the mention of the word Pahlavi on all of their banned the mention of the word Pahlavi on all of their news. So Voice of America Persian has banned even the mention of the word Pahlavi in any of their news. And American taxpayers are paying for it. American taxpayers are paying for the Persian branch of Voice of America, which has banned the mention of the word Pahlavi because it's now being run by a Kurdish separatist guy called Ali Jawahiri. This is why we have no alternative other than Iran International. Anyways,
Can I just quickly ask where does Manitou's bias come from?
so I don't know how originally Manito was being funded, but eventually they ran out of money and they cut a lot of their programs, and now they're only funded by support of the users. That's why a lot of their news programming has shut down, and they have turned into like a podcast commentary show. They used to have, when they had a different source of funding, which I don't know where it was from, they used to have the best documentaries, and a lot of people love their documentaries, like regarding pre-Islamic Republic documentaries regarding the Shah's time. People, you love those. Now they're all like, a lot of them is now for only YouTube members only, because they're running out of money. So now they have turned into a model for people to pay them, donate, pay. So that's now their source of funding. But they used to have more they were almost completely shut down at some point because they were run out of funding. This is why only BBC, Voice of America, and Iran International continue to live, because BBC is funded by the British taxpayer, Voice of America is funded by the American taxpayer, and Iran International is funded by the Saudis. So Jeffrey wanted to add to that.
Yeah, to your point. So you're not wrong for them to be cautious about what they're being told. Think about what you said, and you're right on the money. It very much smacks of what the Soviet Union did after the Second World War when they set up honey traps to kill both in the intramural wars and post Second World War, setting up honey traps and controlled opposition to flesh out what the opposition would be in Ukraine and Poland, and it like resulted in tens of thousands of anti-Bolshevik, anti-Soviet resistors being killed. So, there's a book when I'm done, I'll go and find it if I can in the back, that outlines how, and actually uses the Mullah regime as the case study, how the Mullah regime will use things like leftist originated or like institutions that have been institutionally captured by leftists because of that marriage of convenience, red, black, and or green, red, green alliance kind of stuff, to push disinformation unbeknownst. Many of them don't even know they're being used that way. They don't care, right? They just care about their career or regurgitating what they've been conditioned to think. It still has operational impact to the brave Iranian protesters. It takes a long time to clean those guys out because they've been capturing those institutions for 70 years, which is also why it's really important that you and Goldie and Tusi and the rest of you do all the things you do, Armin, because you're giving an alternative, source of news, yes, that is not institutionally captured by ideologies that are either, are friendly to and or accommodating to the Mullah regime. And you're right to be concerned, man. I'm glad that you guys, please tell me you told the other people in the diaspora not to do that, because the Mullah regime would absolutely use that to flesh them out and kill them. I believe that 100%.
I mean, I didn't have to tell them. They came to me in huge numbers telling me to say this on the show, right? So they were basically, they were like on the Persian show that I had today. So the way I do the Persian show right now is I just go to the Persian Discord server and I just share that and I speak, and then everybody from Iranians inside and outside of Iran come up and speak. But even before I got the chance to say anything about that on the show, there were people who were like, people raised their hand to speak, and they wanted to talk about that and call out Manitou regarding that. And apparently, they're not backing down, which is making them lose credibility fast. Yeah.
So I'm next, and I want to shift a little
Yay.
bit. Mike, I got you.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Thanks.
I want to shift for a second to, a huge window. So I saw a video today of Keir Starmer talking about Peter Mandelson being on the Epstein list. And to put it very brief to anyone who didn't see it, it was basically, how could we know this guy was on the list? And it was like, well, did you check? And it was like, yeah, well, he was involved, but we asked him and he said he wasn't doing anything shady. And then they're like, okay, show us give us the info. And then his response was basically, no, national security. Can somebody who knows about national security give me what? Nobody is asking for somebody in the parliament's address and phone number. What about national security could it be that they can't give this information up?
Wait, so is he the UK ambassador to the US, this guy?
I
Who is he?
believe so. I believe so.
Oh, okay. So national security. I think this is a Jeffrey question. How could this be a national security issue?
I understand from like a justice standpoint, when you're doing investigations, you don't want to reveal information that can compromise your investigation. That's one thing, and I'm totally setting that to the side. But National security, like we're not asking for the red phone number. We're not asking for codes. We don't want somebody's retinal scan. Like, what's the information?
Hmm.
Jeffrey might be snacking right now, I have a feeling, or making tea. Okay, we can move on.
Wait, what do we know about his, like, what do we know so far regarding him and the Epstein file? Do we have any information?
Well, my takeaway was the photo of him in his panties next
Mhm.
to a woman in a robe looking at something. But he was
Right.
definitely in his dad underwear.
So let me do a Steelman. So if you release, what they could say is that if they release more information, you could basically put two and two together and figure out the people who are involved, and then use that to put pressure on him or other people, and then use that to basically take state secret information that you're not supposed to have. By knowing the people who are involved, then you will have leverage over them. Then you could use that as a way to basically extract information from key people within the government.
So, like, I get that I get that that's a thing. But if we were to place that as the national security threat, you can apply that to anything in the world, to any
Right.
person, and we never have to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Also, what
True.
could happen is expose those people, and then they get out of the government if they need to. And
Right.
then secrets what? Because when it's all brought out to the
Oh
light,
yeah, yeah. So just expose them completely, embarrass everything out there, so that there's nothing else to use as leverage.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know that it can get worse. No offense to anybody's panty choices, but they're like the hardcore, like dad white panties. And so, like, it's not gonna, is it gonna get worse than that? The whole globe saw that.
Yes. Jeffrey, did you want to add to that regarding security threats?
I've been going commando since I've been 10, so I don't know. I have no real stake in that. I have no horse in that race.
Okay.
But maybe the national security portion of the panty conversation, they're saying it's a national security threat to not release the information. Is my assumption that that's BS? Is there a context in which it could be true?
Is that a real thing? I was so deep in that report. There really was a panty. That's real.
So the picture of him in his undies in Epstein's hotel room speaking to a woman in a robe is part of it. But what Starmer is saying is he can't reveal what the gentleman did, or like publicly, they're not going to give any information out because it's a national security threat.
So there might be things that are national security threats. He cited the color of the guy's panties as the reason. He did.
No.
That's what. Okay,
He,
because I
when
was
he,
like,
no, no,
otherwise
no.
I'm just gonna go
Was,
start drinking. All right, because I'm just like I'm done. I don't know how to
they're
fix
white.
this.
All saw. That is not the question. It was just that, you know, when Parliament was saying, like, you need to release this information, you have looked into him. First you claim you didn't, you know, that there was no flags, and then you claim you did see them, but that he explained them away to you and everything was fine. Like, give us what you looked into and what you know. Show us what you were dealing with when you made the decision that this was fine until now that it came out. Like, and he said he can't because it's all national security threat.
So I can speak to that. Thank God it isn't about panties. Okay, so it's true that some of the things there could have national security issues. That's one of the things I kind of sent up the chain when you had that disconnect between, and they're both good people. I love them both, Pam Bondi and Don Bongino. They had different ideas. They came out on different sides of the coin regarding releasing all the Epstein files, right? Pam Bondi was very much like, look, we have to do this the right way because there's still some investigations going on, and we don't want to sit there and undermine those investigations. So victims can see, justice. Plus, there's some national security issues because there's very powerful people in countries that are part of our alliance that our adversaries might use to fracture said alliance in preparation of a high intensity world war and all of that. All valid points. Don Bongino's point is people have very little confidence in many tragically for good reason, in our institutions and agencies, right? We need to release these to start to leverage transparency, rebuild that confidence, because we're going to need it. And so the question is, how do you square that circle? So that's a real circle to square. That being said, from the preliminary stuff that I've looked at, from what you're talking about, it seems like some of the people in positions of responsibility misperceive or as one of privilege or power are going to use that kind of friction as a means to national security wash, releasing things that are embarrassing to them and have no impact on national security. That doesn't mean that that conversation shouldn't be had, though. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you. So basically, Keir Starmer's a liar. That's what we have found out. Okay, next is Michael.
Alrighty. Wait, can anyone hear me or not?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I don't get what the hell is going on. So, like, basically, right now what's happening is Donald Trump is negotiating with terrorists, the Iranians, right? And so basically, my question is, when the hell is he gonna attack Iran? It's already been waiting for too long. I heard he's gonna have convo with, or they're gonna have a meeting about something. But like, my question is, when the hell are they gonna strike Iran? They've already killed 40,000 people. Like, that's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So from a U.S. perspective, okay, I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound
Mm.
bad, okay, but I'm gonna just deal with objective reality. Right? I'm gonna be descriptive. Okay, this is not normative. This is descriptive. Okay. From an American perspective, the 40,000 people killed is allows them to do something that is in the benefit of America, right? But
Mhm.
the point is
Yeah.
that it has to make sense for American interest, right? This is not for the sake of Iranian people, okay? The fact that they did this to the Iranian people gives them international legitimacy to go do something, but it's not about saving the Iranian people. When American taxpayer money is being used to this degree to do something, it has to make sense for the American taxpayer. It has to be somehow in their benefit, right? And also it has to the cost, not only you have to demonstrate the benefit, you also have to minimize the cost, especially more than money, the lives of American soldiers, right? And remember this, the calculation, let's look at three countries: Iran, Israel, and United States. So for Iran, this is a matter of survival, right? For Israel,
Yeah.
this is a matter of survival. For United States, this is not a matter of survival, right? America is going to be fine. For America, this is a matter of more dominance over the world, more control over, more available ability to keep internet
Available assets.
hold on, trade routes stable, right? More able to basically control lower energy prices and basically control inflation inside the United States. And most importantly, the higher, Michael, can you close your mic because I'm hearing some background? Most importantly, United States being able to position itself better when it comes to competing against China in the upcoming Cold War, right? These are the things that matter to United States, right? But remember, America might have a strong military that could do godlike things with it. However, it's limited when it comes to political capital because it's a democracy, right? So even if America can do many things when it comes to military capital, it's limited with political capital because the American people have to approve to a certain degree before they could actually do something. Like, you can't just go use their military for anything they want, right? And you would lose American support fast if American soldiers die. Again, the calculation is different for Israeli soldiers because Israeli citizens are more understanding if Israeli soldiers die because Israeli soldiers are fighting for the survival of their country. So Israelis have a higher understanding that sometimes we lose soldiers because they're fighting for the lives of everybody else in their country. American citizens don't think that, like, if Israel loses wars, this brings the possibility of more Israelis dying inside Israel. So that's why Israelis usually approve of their government going into wars because they understand what's at stake. American citizens don't feel like that. The American citizens don't feel like, oh, if we lose the war with the Islamic Republic, they're not gonna die. Nothing's gonna happen to them, right? Like if they fuck up in Afghanistan, they're just gonna lose a lot of money. Nothing is gonna happen to them in, like, they don't feel like something is gonna happen to them in like LA, right? I mean, 9/11 happened, but that was like, it doesn't happen. It's not to the same extent that your lives is at risk in Iran, or like mostly in Iran, then in Israel, but Americans feel safer. There's an ocean between you and them, and America is pretty secure relative to other places, right? One thing is that America needs to make sure, given that the appetite, the ability for Americans to accept soldiers dying is very, very low. If you're going to go to a war that is with the intention of regime change, then you need to make sure that you bring everything possible there to make sure that the cost to America is at the minimum, especially when it comes to lives of soldiers, right? That's one thing. But also, America also doesn't want to accept any harm to its allies in the region, especially because they're very influential in Washington D.C., right? So America should, highest priority, lowest loss in American lives. Second highest priority, no lasting war. So this shouldn't be something that America gets dragged into, that is going to take a long time and they're going to stuck in that. If they get involved, they want to make sure that it's very effective and done with it as quickly as possible. Another priority for America is that, okay, we need to protect ourselves, but we also need to protect our allies. We need to protect Israel. We need to protect Saudi Arabia. We need to protect Qatar. We need to support the UAE. We need to support Bahrain. We need to support Jordan. And we need to support them to the point where not a single ballistic missile of the Islamic Republic lands inside Dubai, for example. If one of them like that is devastating for the UAE. So, like, imagine if a Islamic Republic ballistic missiles lands in Dubai, even if nobody dies, that is capital running out of UAE like so fast, because the whole idea of these countries being a center of commerce and investment is because the understanding is that war doesn't enter in these regions. War enters Lebanon, wars enter Syria. You have war in these regions, war enters Yemen, Somalia, Sudan, but not in the UAE. That's why they're so rich, because all that oil and gas money goes into areas where there's no chaos, right? So UAE's entire appeal, and also Saudi Arabia's, is that we don't have that kind of bullshit that these other, Lebanon and Syria and Yemen has, right? This place is stable. That's why they're so rich, because it's not just the oil and gas. I mean, the Islamic Republic has a lot of oil and gas. They're not that rich. Iraq has a lot of oil and gas. They're not that rich. Saudi Arabia has oil and gas, but it also has stability. So it's not just oil and, or having oil and gas is not enough for you to become like a rich Arab country. You also need to demonstrate stability. Yeah, you also need to demonstrate stability. That's why they're very, very sensitive regarding any chaos entering into their territory. And because they're US allies, they lobby Washington to, as and they have influence, and they want to make sure that if it were so, this, for a country, for example, like Saudi Arabia, there are three options and they hate option two. Option number one is no war at all. Option number two is attacking the Islamic Republic and not toppling the regime. This is the option that they hate. Option number three is attacking the Islamic Republic and toppling the regime. They're okay with this one. This is actually the preferred option, but they're not at all sure that this is going to be the option if the United States attacks. And that's why they're terrified the United States is going to attack the Islamic Republic and they're going to basically wound this beast. And then the United States is going to leave the area. And now they're left alone with this wounded, crazy beast. And they're going to be paying the price for them going even crazier than they used to be. So they don't want that. They want to make sure the United States doesn't attack the Islamic Republic, or if they do attack, to finish the job. And again, the Saudis have a lot of influence in Washington, D.C. They do, and the Qataris do as well. United States has to take all of this into account. It needs to take into account the American voters, American taxpayers, all of these lobby groups, all of the different interest groups, and most importantly, protecting its soldiers. And oh, one other element that you have to take into account why things might take longer than people want is because this is a huge opportunity for United States. There's 20 years of weapon development that hasn't been tested, right? And America wants to bring, if the war is going to happen, America wants to bring all of its toys to the playground. Every single one of its toys that it has made and worked on for the past 20 years, it wants to basically, like, if we're going to go to war, let's make sure we play with everything that we have because none of this has been tested. One thing that people don't understand is that when it comes to military weapons, nothing will give you information regarding how capable your weapons are more than actually using them in a real war. So you could do as many tests as you want. You're never going to know how capable your weapons are unless you actually use them in war. So there has been, America hasn't had like a real war for the past 20 years, ever since the fall of Saddam. And they have a lot of new toys. And a lot of these weapon manufacturing people can just wait to basically demonstrate how capable these are, and this is the opportunity. So basically, another thing that might be taking time is to just basically prepare to bring everything that they have for testing for this. They're gonna use things that they don't even need just to see how they work. But yeah, go on, Michael.
Makes sense. And one last thing I want to add also, it's unfortunate that these people have power in the US, like many of these Arab countries, because a lot of them are funding genocide, like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. They're basically killing their own people, like in Yemen. But nobody wants to talk about that. And yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but you can't expect it to be any way else. At the end of the day, if you look at it from an American perspective, I need to do things that are in the best interest of my citizens. They might have a poor human rights record, but if they're going to invest in my country, for example, and these investments is going to create job and commerce for my country, like, yeah, I mean, sure, sorry for the people of their country, but as a government, I have been elected to improve the lives of my citizens. No,
One advantage.
I'm not saying human rights of other countries are irrelevant. But it's not that direct. The relevance is that if my citizens have a positive view of you, then it's going to be easier for us to get along because I'm serving my citizens. So if my citizens hate you, then it's going to be difficult for me to cooperate with you. So your poor human rights record has an indirect effect on whether we could work with each other, but it's not that direct. But go on.
One thing that Israel has an advantage over all these Arab countries is that it has developed its indigenous military weapons technology, something that many of these Arab countries have not developed. So Israel has an
They
upper
can't.
hand here. Like, huh?
They can't. They don't know how to. They always rely.
But they
All
have
they
the
know is
money.
yeah, but that's the problem because their
Yeah.
solution to everything is just throw money at things, right? This is basically it's very similar to a spoiled kid that doesn't know how to do things because their parents just threw money at them every time they had a problem. So a lot of these rich Arab countries, they don't know how to basically develop their own skills and talents and basically do these things because they just had so much oil money that every time they just needed something to fix something, they just hired foreigners to do it for them because they just could afford it. So they didn't develop any of their own local skills.
Defense.
Okay, Armin, to clarify, are you at your standard leave time today or are you leaving early?
No, I could actually leave later because Goldie had
Okay.
to go. So I'm actually have
Oh,
more time.
There was a question in chat. There was a little confusion, and since I arrived a little bit late, I wanted to make sure. Okay, great. So next we have Nicholas.
Nicholas. Hope he's still around. Yes, still here. If the mic is not opening, you probably need to give it permission in your browser. And if that doesn't work, you might need to refresh the browser. Nicholas, do you hear us? Write in the chat. Do you see the chat? You could talk to us there.
Nicholas, if you get
Nichol-
it figured out, go ahead and type to us in chat either way. I will move on to the next person just for the sake of time, and then we'll let you cut in as soon as you get it situated.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce off some of the things that Armin, he touched a lot of good points. One is the issue of political capital and national will. So General Giap's book, How We, meaning the Northern Vietnamese, allegedly won, read, stop the United States from realizing our regional goals, which is an independent South, albeit corrupt, democratic Vietnam. We won all the major tactical battles, and we won the strategic battle because it cost the Soviets more to support the North than it did for us to do the stuff in the South. And or Senator Chuck Warner's National Security Act of 2000 outlines that the United States' most vulnerable center of gravity is its national will. And he's very right about that. As far as U.S. and Iranian people's interests are very much, regarding the elimination of Mullah regime, are very much aligned. This was actually said, and it's actually trending right now. I'm going to post it in the chat. That was actually then Senator Rubio's statement regarding the fact that if we did not hit the Mullah regime in 2015, when Obama was doing all his stupid shit regarding the JCPOA, that inevitably we're going to have to fight the Mullah regime. Why is the issue, though? Why is the delay? Because again, you have an ever-changing operational environment. We need more interceptors because the patron states of the Mullah regime are providing material support in part to the Mullah regime. The other part, and that could be ballistic missiles, particularly if the Mullahs were given turnkey systems. This goes to what Armin's saying about what's the main concern: either don't do or do fully don't have to. Well, why? And he's right. Because if you have to, and you have a mortally wounded Mullah regime, which is one of the things I included in the intel assessment of the threat, risk, and vulnerability assessment that was sent to retired Israeli flag officers 4 years ago, you now have a mortally wounded Mullah regime that goes down the S curve of prospect theory and says they're going to be risk acceptance instead of risk adverse because they got nothing left to lose. I mean, they already are going to do that because they're pseudo-theologically motivated. Now they have even more impetus. So what does that mean, say, operationally? It's not just the ballistic missiles, although that's a big issue, particularly if the Mullah regime is given turnkey systems by Putin, Xi, or anybody else, for that matter, with regards to WMDs. It's also using proxies to attack other actors in the region. For instance, it's not so much that the allies are worried about if we'll leave the area, it's that the Mullah regime is going to tell their proxies hit everybody, not the least of which, to exemplify that threat, is the September 14th, 2019 large-scale drone and missile strike against two major Saudi Aramco energy facilities. That was done by Mullah-backed Yemeni Houthis that did that. And it actually disrupted 5% of the global production of oil. And then everybody's like, oh, so we got to make sure we protect those assets as well. Real quickly, with regards to battle data, Armin's right that, yeah, it's good to sit there and use your latest and greatest toys to get real world battle data back in preparation for broader conflicts in, say, Europe against Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state or the Chinese Communist Party invading Taiwan. The issue with that is whenever you use capabilities like that, it also helps the adversaries as well, particularly because the adversaries, whether it's Putin or Xi or the North Koreans or whoever, then start doing their own version of, albeit not to the degree we can, massant or measurement-based intelligence. All of that to say this, and I want to reiterate this because I said this 2 days ago. I was trying to get there before I jumped off, and then I'll be done. There's a reason I keep, given all this fluid environment and that is happening and how it affects things at the national level. There's a reason I keep pushing home that the pro-Iranian resistance diaspora should very much follow the model that was, that has been developed by Ukraine's diaspora to ensure that they get support in supplement to what goes on at the national level.